Alright, so what's up guys? We are back with another video and I'm going to be talking about the differential options for the RX8. So we are going to get started on talking about with the RX8, so the stock differential. So the gearing options for the RX8 differential is one of the bigger problems. The factory differentials come with a 477 or 444 gear ratios depending on the model and whether it's an automatic or a manual. I can't remember which ones. I believe that all of the manuals are 477s, and I believe that the automatics are 444s. That may or not be 100% accurate, but I believe that's what it was. But regardless, these gear ratios are horrible for a V8 engine. They are, overdrive, you're talking about that you're 120 miles an hour or less, that you're having to get into overdrive, and it just kills all your power, which is 120 in the car is just not that big of a deal. It doesn't rev to 9,000 RPMs like the other motor did, whereas if the LS did, then these gear ratios wouldn't be too bad. But because we don't need RPM, because we have displacement, the LS, it is much better to get different options. We will talk about the different gear options that I think are a little better fit, and when we start talking about the 8.8 and why I would choose certain gear ratios. So because this gear ratio is a huge problem with the differential, I have no longer updated the differential mounting for the RX8 because we were seeing problems being caused whenever you start creeping up or around the 400 wheel horsepower problems, 400 horsepower cars. I don't recommend going over this, like I said, due to the problems that these gear ratios cause. You're being very ineffective with your horsepower at this power level because the car would pick up a lot of power and speed once you start getting better ratios. There are options where you can swap different gear ratios into the diff, but you still are having problems with mounting. So the mounting that I have, I've been messing with I had messed with the mounting for about 6 years trying to get it as strong as I could. It does very well. I've personally made 474 wheel horsepower with the car, but it was an automatic, and I've run a 1080 at 126. So I've done a 10.8 at 126 miles per hour using an auto. So an automatic transmission does not have nearly the type of stress as a manual transmission. I don't think that you could have run that kind of speed with a manual transmission without causing differential problems. So with that car, like I said, I made 474 rear wheel horsepower. I'm pretty sure it made somewhere around 500 foot-pounds of torque because that was using nitrous, and nitrous creates a lot of torque. And I didn't have any differential problems with this. I launched the car several times extremely hard. So whenever I was at the track with this pass, I actually sprayed right off the line. So I cut a 1.58 60 foot, I think, which is a very good 60 foot for that kind of power. But I think it's just before I got to the end of the track, remember I said, under 125 miles an hour, I shifted into overdrive at the end of the track, and I think that I could have probably gotten to 127 to 128 miles per hour in a quarter had I had better gearing. I never proved that, but I believe that to be so. I was having to take off in second gear with the transmission I was using, and before I was taking off in second, I was actually running like a 1.8, 60 foot. So that's what the difference was just with changing the gear to a second gear. Because right when I'd get out of in the 60 foot, I'd be going to second gear. So this is an option for people, but it is not the best. You can get the car driving, you can enjoy the car. I drove around with the factory RX8 Diff for 5-6 years, so I mean, it does work, but it does cause problems, especially when you start getting past this power level. But so that's my recommendation on the RX8. I didn't feel like it was necessary to make the differential mounting to really get it to where I could still easily ship it, because I can make mounting to where it won't break, but it's not worth what it takes because there's no gain in it. So that's why I never pushed it beyond that, is because you're literally pumping more power in a trash can almost. So that's my opinion on this. You can, I mean, again, if you want to try to chase that, I don't think it's worth it at all. It is a lot of money to go to a diff swap, but there are so many advantages of doing this. So rather than wasting time, money, and effort on this, I would recommend, if you're plan on ever going beyond this, don't even start with this, because when you get my mounting, you can have the option of either of these differentials, and the price doesn't change because it's pretty much the same parts that I use for both sets. This one, like I said right here, I haven't even found the limit of how much power that this can hold. So the difference is there's 2 mounting points on the rear of the Mazda differential, but there's only 1 mounting point that's very good in the front. The other side that some people have used is an exhaust hanger, which is a decent bolt, but it's just offset and makes it very difficult. But again, it isn't the differential that ends up breaking. It's actually I've ripped the ears off the subframe is what's happened. And I believe that I had a customer here recently that actually sent me a picture of him ripping the ears off of it. I think that is the 3rd person that I'm aware of that's ever done it. I don't know how much power he's been doing it, but the first one that ever happened, he had been running, it was right at 400 wheel horsepower for a year. He was doing extremely hard launches and stuff like that. So it's not like it's super fragile at that power. It's just, it's not very effective. And it will cause you problems in the long run. But like I was saying, so this right here, I mean, the differential options, there's no more money that it costs to go for this mounting. So the next cost is you need axles, and I recommend replacing it with the CNC differential cover that we offer. We make $0 on it. We just make it to where y'all get it without having to machine it or make it to where it'll fit in the car. We've done a lot of work to try to cut everything off of it in a way that fits very well. So that's what we have done with this differential cover. Some people have decided that they wanted to do it themselves, and I'm fine with that. Like I said, this was an option to make it to where it's easier for y'all, so that y'all can just bolt the cover to the diff and bolt it into the car. So now we're going to go ahead and talk about the 488. So there are 3 different options that we have. So the 07 to 2010 Explorer differentials. So these came, as far as I'm aware of, they were all open differentials, which means that it's 1 tire fire, you only spin 1 wheel. So it limits tractionability. So the only way to convert it to an LSD is you have to replace the internal chunk of it. One of the biggest advantages of going with the Explorer diff is the gear ratios. So you can get a 355 or 373s that I'm aware of in those differential options. So putting an LSD in it, I've never personally done it. I prefer to get differentials and leave them that way. I've only upgraded the clutches in mine, which came from a Thunderbird, but we'll talk about that in a second. So this is a great option because they're readily available. They seem to be everywhere. There's a whole lot more than either of these, but you can find them. So They are a lot cheaper. I think I've seen them for around $200, $250, $300. Whereas when you get into the Cobra, I've seen them for $800 to $1,000. So they are a lot better. They're a lot higher, although they all came in LSDs. So that's the disadvantage of the Explorer, which really is, I've found that would be my last choice if I could choose, really, because I want to do as little work into the internal of the differential as I can. Some of you might not feel the same way. I just prefer to not go internal of the differentials, but like I said, I mean, not everybody has the same level of skill. So the one that I chose was from a Ford Thunderbird. So one of the reasons that let's talk about this first. So this is an ideal gear ratio for a car with a manual. The T56, the 6L8, the T56, the TR6060. I think the CD09 would still not be a bad choice. So all of those transmissions would work very well with this gear ratio. A factory Corvette comes with 342s. So if I were to be leaning, I would be leaning more toward the 355s than the 373s. If you want to, if you're not going for a very high top speed, you're only wanting, you're not planning to go super fast. These 373s probably will accelerate a little differently and a little faster on the lower end, where on the top end, it'll start falling off. I'm not sure what kind of mile per hour that would be at. I'd have to use a calculator based on what transmission you use, but this would work best for the manual transmissions and a 4L60E. So the 4L60E would also work good with these gear ratios, which the Cobra also comes with the 355. So using this either of those diff gear ratios are really good for the 4L60. I think if you got a 4L80, I think the 373s would be a better option, depending on how much power you're making, though. If you got, the bigger motor you have, the less gear you need. If I'm saying that right, I always get confused. I do it as lower number, but some people call them taller, but because they're longer. But so the Ford Thunderbird is the one that I chose. So I have used that with a Turbo 400, but I had a 6-liter that was twin turboed, so I had a lot more power pushing it. I had a Turbo 400 on 273 gears. It would almost do 90 miles an hour in first gear. So you have to have a lot of motor to be able to do that. And I could still blow the tires without a problem with it. But like I said, you'll need a lot of power for that. But if you're using like a 6L80 or a CD09 I can't remember the gear ratios. I think they're pretty low enough to where you can use like a 308, a 327 or something like that. So I don't think those would be horrible options. So this is the disadvantage of the Thunderbird differential. So the disadvantage is that if you do find an LSD, so a limited slip differential, in either three of these ratios, is they are not ideal for most transmissions that people are putting in the cars. Because a 4L60 is, I would imagine, is going to be pretty doggy with a fairly stock motor with these gear ratios. But, it's still going to go. Don't get me wrong. It's going to do better than the factory RX8, but it's not going to do as well as these gears would. And another disadvantage of it is there are some, if you're not careful, there are 7.5-inch ring gears and not 8.8, even though they're in the same case. So it's very important to make sure that you're getting an 8.8 differential. Really, the only way that I know for sure to be able to determine that is to look at the tab that's on the differential cover. So I don't have any telltale signs that I'm aware of to be able to determine this difference between a 7.5 and an 8.8, but I know that they had them in similar cases if they're not identical. So they also had them in the Lincoln Mark 8. So I believe that all of the ones in the Lincoln Mark 8 were, in fact, open differentials. I could be wrong, but I'm almost certain that they are all open differentials from the Mark 8, which would mean, just like the Explorer, you'll have to put a chunk in, which therefore you should probably just get the Explorer if you cannot find an LSD version of this if you're looking for it. But if you're using the 6L80, I think the 273, either three of these gear ratios are going to be pretty decent with the 6L80. I have a stock 6.2 in my car right now, and stock converter, it still just does just fine, even with the 273s. And then this is the best option. It's just the most expensive option. So this is, again, this is an aluminum case, this is an iron case, and this is an aluminum case differential. So this 03 to 04 Cobra is the best option that is available currently with my swap kit. So, but they're the most expensive. So they are, as far as I'm aware of, they are all 355 gears in them. This is decent gearing for pretty much any transmission you get, but I mean, depending on what you're trying to do, that's not always optimal. So, but I mean, most people do not need optimum gearing, so don't think that, oh, I need to get the perfect gearing, because most of you, if you're not doing like extreme competitive stuff, it's a lot less important than some of you may think. But I mean, if you have any questions about your setup, I mean, I'm happy to help. So I mean, just post any comments y'all have about if you have any questions about what you think you should do or whatever. But 355 gears is kind of the middle where it'll work with any of the transmissions pretty decently. So this, like I said, is the best option, I think, but is very difficult to get. So another thing we're going to talk about is the new axles that Drive Chef Shop now makes for us. So they now have upgraded the outer CV to a 300M, and they are their strongest axles that they claim that they offer now. So whenever I had my twin turbo car all built and set up, I had broken their previous set of axles. I had broken the outer CV in just a couple days, and I was actually at 730 wheel horsepower at that time. They rated them for 500 or 600, I can't remember. I broke the outer in a couple days, like I said, and I called them up. I was like, look, I need something that's not going to break. And they ended up selling me a $2,200 pro level axle. That was their only option at the time, which was double the price of the previous axles. So I was just like, well, I gotta have something I can count on. I can't be on the side of the road, have spare parts trying to fix the car on the side of the road, because there's no telling on when or where or what I'll be doing at that time. And so I did not want to be worrying about when the axle was going to break or if it was. So I went ahead and spent the money, and I did a 930 at 151 miles per hour with their pro level axles, and I never had a problem. The whole time I had it, I ran the crap out of it at the track. I launched on 5, 6, 7, 8 pounds of boost. I cut a 154 60 foot with it, which it could have done better. I was needing some suspension work to try to hook a little better, and I was off the foot brake, so I could have done a lot better using the trans brake, but I never got to the track while I had that working. Again, this is for the machine differential cover that I was talking about. But so these axles, they claim, is stronger than the pro level axles, which that was very good to hear. And these are the same axles that I offer on the website that I have. They are now at $1,100. I think $1,150. So these are the only level axles that they offer, and are by far worth every penny, because they're just a solid axle you can count on. You're not going to have to worry about them breaking. If they do, they're going to take care of you. Even when I broke their other ones, I think I was 2 years, and they repaired it with. As soon as they saw that it broke, they sent me a new one. So, if you break these axles, Drive Chef Shop is very good to warranty these axles. I'm not saying that they will warranty yours 2 years out, but they do offer a 1-year warranty on all the sets of axles that we sell. And again, I have not found the limit of the differential mounting or the differential itself. All I did was carbon clutch upgrades on a stock LSD differential from the Thunderbird. So it is an extremely strong differential mounting and everything. So I've been super satisfied whenever I did the 930 and made all the power that I did. Again, that was in 85-degree weather, so that was not an optimum weather at all, which is why it should have been much faster. That was actually only averaging, it was about 800 to 850 wheel horsepower at that time. But, I mean, I wanted to find a place where it broke, and I broke everything else. So sometimes that's what happens, but I mean, when you're making that kind of power, so many different things can cause catastrophic failures. So that's for another video. But there's one more differential that I'm working on that will be a new option. This is one that I hope to replace all of this, so that, because I think this is a better option as they're a lot newer. So the new LSD differentials from the 2015 up Mustangs are all LSDs, and as far as I'm aware of, and they have gear ratios that are all over the place. So we can get similar gear ratio options to these. So we'll be able to really get a lot newer differential, because you're talking, I mean, if you get one from an 89 or 97, I mean, you're talking, this is almost a 30-year-old differential, which I haven't had any issues with mine, but it is still a 30-year-old unit, which can easily have issues due to age, and the likelihood of getting a problematic differential. I have not found one, but it is a lot more likely than one that's only 10 years old. So this is actually only 5 years old. So they offer a bunch of gear ratios on these. I don't have them up here, but I think I just ordered a 315 gear ratio that I'm going to be messing with. And a lot of them are aluminum cases similar to the Cobra. So, like as I said, I think all of them are LSD. I'm not certain. There are some torsion style for like the track pack versions, and this is a differential that I'm working on getting the mounting for to be a better option for the differential as a differential swap. I think it will save you some money, and that is my goal, is to save money and get a better product. I am all for making things better for cheaper, because I don't want to sacrifice quality for money though, because I'd like a good quality product that I can handle and I can count on, because it don't do you any good if it's broken. So, but I just wanted to talk about all these differentials, and next week we will probably be talking about the fuel system next. I hope this was very informative, and if you have any questions, please leave a comment and we will try to get back with you. All right, see you.